Hello, welcome to my contest prep video series. So today I wanted to kind of give an introduction and history as to my competition background. First of all, if you don't know me, my name is Leah Taylor. I live in Vermont. I co-own a gym here, and so I personal train and teach classes and am a nutrition coach as well. And I have been competing since 2007, so this will be, I guess, my 12th year going into competing. So I did my first show in 2007, and I didn't have a coach. I did everything on my own. It was, I think, about 10 weeks out from the show that I started prepping. I kind of made the decision to do it, and then I just went for it. I did not have many resources other than the internet, and I took a lot of information from the internet and from different places and kind of mashed them all together and applied them all to myself. Now, looking back, I could have done things much better, but it was a learning process for me. YouTube was not nearly as educational as it is today or as popular, so I probably could have used that. There's a lot more information out there now on competing and just everything in general. So at that point, I had gone to school for holistic nutrition, so I did have some education as far as nutrition was concerned, but getting on stage is a whole different ballgame. It's, and I did not have that knowledge or that experience, so I did whatever I could to just get as lean as possible, and I think I lost about 20 pounds for my first show. I did a competition in New Hampshire. I had a pretty decent sized class and I got first place, and that was kind of, when I got hooked. Obviously you do well, it kind of just sparks and encourages you to keep going. So I thought, this is great. I kind of found I was just like so happy after that, and I felt really good. However, I was very focused on food. So that was my first time really, dieting to that extreme level. And again, I probably could have done things a little smarter. And so after the show, I remember I had a list of places I wanted to go eat and foods that I wanted to eat. So it was just a free-for-all after the competition. And I gained back probably 30 pounds. So a few months later, I was in a worse place than before I started. And this happens a lot. This is actually pretty common in the competition industry, unfortunately. So again, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have anybody guiding me and telling me how to come out of the show in a smart way. There is a better way. But I was just like hungry and I wanted to eat everything in sight. So I did. So then I'm in a place a few months later where I, gained a bunch of weight back and I felt like crap. And I was uncomfortable after being in such great shape and then feeling like I was in, horrible shape. So not only physically is that challenging, but more so mentally, because body image is a huge part of this industry. And it's something that I've struggled with over the past 10, 12 years. So I don't want to ramble too much. Basically, after you get to that point, it's kind of like, okay, I need to pick another show and now start training for another show. So I did just that. I did another show in 2008, and I basically went through this cycle several times through to the, I think 2010 was kind of when I did a show that spring, and then my body had kind of had it. And so what happens when you diet, and this goes for really any severe diet or super restricted diet. You don't have to necessarily be getting on stage. You could be just doing, yo-yo dieting and doing fad diets, which are usually very low in calories. And what happens is, and the reason why you need to continue to lower calories and increase cardio to continue losing body fat is because your body wants to adapt to wherever that calorie intake is. It wants to survive. It doesn't necessarily care about losing body fat. It's worried about survival. So when you lower your calories to a certain point, your metabolism then comes down, and your calorie output, your calorie burn tends to lower to match that. And so you continue to lower calories to continue seeing progress, and your metabolism will, keep going down. So what happens after a competition or after, a period of restricted eating or, eating very low calories, your metabolism is now down here. And if you don't take the right steps to bring your metabolism back up, your calorie intake, if that jumps back up to here, your metabolism is still down here, so your body can't handle all those extra calories. So usually that means you gain a bunch of body fat rather quickly. And then you're stuck in this place where I just gained a bunch of weight and I feel like I want to lose weight again, but your metabolism is still down here, so you can't seem to lose weight. Even if you eat super low calories, now you can't get rid of that body fat. So this is what some people call metabolic damage, metabolic burnout. And this is kind of what I experienced, just that up and down through the first few years of competing and getting more and more restricted every time and not allowing my body to heal and bring my metabolism back up and rest in between shows. I hit a breaking point just where my body had it, and my hormones were all thrown off, and my body just wouldn't respond to anything. And I gained a ton of weight back after that last show. And I think I fortunately didn't do as much damage as I could have. I see a lot of women in the industry who, especially women, it can happen to men too, but I think it's more common with women who have had horrible experiences like this, and they do a few shows and they get super ripped, and then they just have done a ton of damage, and and then they're in a horrible place and they have to kind of dig themselves out of this hole. And I have always been a natural athlete, so I didn't have drugs to exacerbate that, which is very common. So anyways, I worked towards digging myself out of my hole, and I reached out to a coach who had written a lot of articles on metabolic burnout and how to, what it was and how to come out of that. So I started working with him, and we just kind of took the steps to rebuild my metabolism. So again, this can happen to anybody. I think it's especially common with people who yo-yo diet and who have yo-yo dieted for years. And then they're at this place where they're, heavier than they'd like to be, and they just can't seem to lose weight. And it's kind of the same situation. So I took the fall, I had surgery in 2010, and I kind of used that as my starting place for recovery. I couldn't work out, and that was kind of the first step. I just basically needed to let my body heal, and then slowly starting to figure out where my body was maintaining as far as calorie intake, and then just kind of slowly building, allowing my metabolism to kind of work its way back up to a point where I could eat normally, maintain my body weight. It's very common to gain a little bit of more of weight during this process, but it's also very necessary, because once you work your calories back up, you'll then be in a much better place to shed some excess body fat, and do it in a safe way and keep your metabolism working properly. So fast forward to the next couple of years, I slowly started to work my way back into competing. And I did my first national show in 2012. I think that was the one and only year that I did 4 shows within a year, which is a lot. And then I competed 2013, 2014, and I just kept going. And so I did my last show before today in June of 2016. So I competed pretty much straight through from when I was 20 years old to 29. And so obviously through my 20s, I was not living my life like a normal 20-something year old, because I was competing most of the time. And after the last show in 2016, I kind of walked away from that with a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth from the show itself, and I knew that I just needed to take a break. I wasn't saying that I was retired, I just needed to take a step back. And so that's what I did. I just kind of let myself forget about the industry, kind of. I stopped following it. I pretty much only would watch the Olympia, maybe the Arnold's. Other than that, I just stopped following it, and I think I just needed time to kind of live my life. I was, almost 30, and I just wanted to, I kind of feel like I missed out on some things in my 20s. So I just wanted to be spontaneous and not live by, being super rigid for a competition. I started training differently. I just was having fun with it, and I just wanted to be fit. And I wanted to teach myself the Olympic lifts, which I did for the most part somewhat successfully. Again, just to have fun, change up my training. I still ate healthy, of course. I wanted to focus on business things a little bit more, and it was a really good break. It was what I needed, and I told myself that I wouldn't compete again until I was absolutely ready and I could be excited about doing it again. I think after doing so many shows, it kind of it lost its meaning. I feel like I started to do it for the wrong reasons, and it was more of a job and a chore. And I realized I really wasn't enjoying it, because I would get to these points where I was just fighting my body. And again, I've struggled with body image, and so I've always had this image in my head. And I look at the pros, and that's why I'm constantly chasing this physique, and it's always been a struggle for me to get very lean and get contest shape lean. So that's always the thing. I've always needed to be just a little bit leaner. So I just felt like it was always a struggle, mental and physical struggle for me. So again, the break was essential. I think it's the first time that in the past probably 12 to 15 years that I have actually maintained my body weight for that long period of time. And of course I was eating healthy, but I was also enjoying myself. I was drinking beer and going out to dinner more often, and eating more intuitively, and just kind of listening to my body. So now here I am, it's 2019, and this past fall I had kind of been contemplating, thinking about doing this show in April. And so I finally made the decision to do it. I felt ready. I felt like I was ready to kind of go back into bodybuilding style workouts. After my wedding last year, I kind of fell into a little bit of a funk as far as workouts went, and you know, it's just something that you kind of need to push through, and there's always going to be those times. We all get in funks and unmotivated or maybe bored with what we're doing, so it's important to keep things interesting and changing up. Anyway, so I felt ready to take on the competition prep. The more I thought about it, the more I got excited, and so I decided to go for it. So that is my competition history. I just wanted to give you guys that information as far as where I'm coming from. And it's weird because I so clearly can remember my first couple years of competing. You know, I was the amateur, I was still learning, and I'm still learning. I don't think we ever stop learning or should stop learning, but it was still new to me. And I always just remember seeing the, like, you know, older or more veteran competitors. And so it's weird now because the last few shows that I've done, you know, I could see the beginners there, and you know, it's the first time I kind of felt like a veteran competitor. You know, I know what it goes into it, and I know what goes on backstage and the way things run. So I was able to give other people advice, and so it's just weird because time goes by really fast, and it's kind of like all of a sudden I am, you know, that veteran competitor backstage. So I am working towards this competition, and I don't know what is to come afterwards. I'm just going to take it one thing at a time. My husband is doing the show as well, so it's good and interesting that we're doing it together. It definitely helps, at least for me, that we can, you know, put our focus into contest prep together, food prep, and just doing what we need to do, support each other, because we're both going through the same process. So so stay tuned for updates. I will keep you guys posted along the way, and show you some progress pictures and all the other good stuff, the good, the bad. So we'll see how things go. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.